Cool. San Antonio! Welcome to All Things San Antonio Special Edition with
Mau Sanchez.
Mau Sanchez.
On the ballot, Mauricio Mau Sanchez.
On the ballot. So he's kind of diving in on what we're
in case
talking
they
about.
miss the Mauricio, because they're going to be like, who's Mauricio?
So this is possibly the next mayor of San Antonio.
That's 20 people running out.
So you're Mouth to God's ears, right?
Yeah.
That's it, man. I mean, that's my name. I go by Mau. It's just a short nickname. People keep asking me, is that my middle name? I'm like, no. It's just the nickname.
Yeah. It's just the first three letters.
Yeah.
I've never. You hear a lot of Mo's. I don't. You hear Mau. I
had a mentor that used to call me Mo. He refused to call me Mau. And I said, okay. He was Italian, so it was a little different. Yeah. A little more aggressive.
I'll tell you right now that it's like there is a history back. I'm older than you, and the.
No, you're not.
Americans have, and he says Italian. I'm assuming it's Italian American, unless he was straight from Italy. But like, we have a tendency to like change like immigrants' names. So whatever it's like, it's okay, and like they won't get offended. We're just gonna. I know it's pronounced this, but I can't say that.
Yep.
So like they just go their own way. My parents are they're just old like that. But we're excited to have you on, Mau, the Mauricio Sanchez. Like Brad said, we have a series. We hope to have more. We're going to have a few at least. 2025 San Antonio mayoral candidates. This is our first chance to get to sit down with one of them, and we're extremely excited. We ask everybody the same question. Like you asked me earlier if I'm from San Antonio. I moved here in '89. I'm a transplant, military transplant, which is the most normal transplant in San Antonio. And then we have Brad. Born and raised East Sider. Tell your story. Like, what's your origin story to San Antonio and kind of your background?
Yeah. So I've been here my entire life. My parents moved here from Mexico, a small town in northern Mexico. I was probably about 3 weeks old. The story goes, as my parents have told me, and it's funny, I ask them this every 5 years because I'm like testing them. Is this a real story? They moved here. They had $1,000 in, no bank account, $1,000, my dad's station wagon. And I said, what made you guys move? Because they had a house there. I think my dad was working, a couple of odd jobs. My grandfather ran an old bar called El Moderno. If you go to, what's that restaurant on Grayson Street? Down on Grayson. Okay, the nachos, they're called El Moderno because that's where the nachos were originally invented. But that's another story. But long story short, my parents moved here. I was 3 weeks old. My brother was, he's 2 years older than I am. And I asked him, what made you guys move? And it was like, every time I asked him that, it's like, you and your brother, we needed to find a better opportunity and a better life for you guys. And I said, well, Mexico doesn't seem that bad. And then you get older and you begin to dissect Mexico's economy and kind of what pulls the infrastructure there. And you begin to pinpoint, okay, there are some things that are currently wrong with Mexico or have been wrong with Mexico that makes it hard for any entrepreneur or any person trying to make a career out of themselves to be successful there, unless they have ties to the city already. So my parents moved here. They moved to Alma Heights. We had a small house on Montclair. If you're familiar with the corner of Austin Highway and where it meets North New Braunfels, between Broadway and there's a stop and go there. They had an apartment behind that duplex, and then my dad was working like 4 jobs at the time. Got another job, I think he got a promotion at, I don't know how he ended up at the San Antonio Country Club, but he worked at the San Antonio Country Club, got a promotion. We moved into a duplex right behind that apartment complex. So I grew up in that house until 98. Flood of 98 happened. If you're from San Antonio, you know 100%. The flood of 98. Biggest flood that we've ever experienced. We were in the house. They had a boat waiting, to rescue us. And there after that, we moved to the north side. I ended up graduating from Clark. But long story short, my parents moved here because they wanted to find some opportunity for my brother and I. And I never forget that story because making a move like that is huge. Like, I think of it now. Like, I don't think I could do that. Like, I had a raise. I think when I moved to New York for a year or two, and I remember raising a cushion of like $10,000 because I was like, dude, if I can't, and I get it, 89, it's a little different. $1,000 may go further, but that's just scary going to another country. But that's my story. I'm originally from Mexico and. Been in San Antonio my entire life. I've looked at, how it's changed, what parts of town have changed, why there's been lags, why schools have lagged or have failed, to me, our students. And seeing all these changes for 35 years, kind of, it's like somebody puts a thorn in your leg and you're walking, you're trying to go about life and you're trying to, business as usual. I run an investment advisory. Right now, we're currently in growth mode. I've put that kind of on pause. But you're seeing this happen throughout the years, and then you begin to hear that, hey, there's a mayoral race that's coming up. And so you're like, okay, well, who am I going to vote for? Who am I going to vote for? And you're looking at it, and you have your people that you're currently supporting, and then you begin to listen to the messaging of every individual that's running for candidacy. And you begin to question, why aren't they talking about the real issues of what this city's dealing with right now? And that's where the thorn grew into this infection where I was like, I need to open Pandora's box. And I've discovered that, out of all the candidates, to me, nobody was talking about the real issues here. And I had a couple of meetings with different consultants, different friends, more friends than anything, but former mayors, former candidates that have run in races, whether it's mayor seat or district seats. And I began to really formulate a picture of what was happening here. Once I began to dissect those important details of the political space, because I'm not a politician, I'm an investment guy. Once I began to dig into the details of the political space, I said, okay, well, there's obviously some kind of economic issue here, because again, poverty rates at what they are, schools closing, income lagging 15 to 20% behind other Texas cities. Although we're the highest populated, biggest by land mass, second biggest by land mass, second biggest by population, second biggest by land mass, I began to dig into the economics of it. So as I began to dig into the economics, and this is 6 months prior to my announcement, began to look at it and I said, okay, now people are really not talking about what the real issues are. And so at my firm, I have an intern he's a master's student from the University of Rochester. I brought him on. And one of the first projects that I gave him before I gave him the offer to intern with us is I said, look at the landscape, the economic landscape of San Antonio, and then look at Texas as a demographic. And I want you to tell me what is wrong here. Unbiased approach. He doesn't even know what San Antonio is. I mean, maybe he's heard of the Spurs, but again, totally unbiased approach. And everything that he talked about, echoed kind of what I have already done my research on. And at that point, I was like, okay, I've opened Pandora's box. I've seen too much. Somebody's got to bring this to the table, and somebody's got to talk about it. And there goes my campaign. I asked a friend who is a longtime business owner, Jesse Morella's Ice. If you've gone to any restaurant or any bar in town, they get their ice from Jesse. Morella's Ice, you see their big trucks everywhere.
We almost had them come do our client event with the
snow. You should have, man.
Yeah,
snow. Dude, they do a great job.
But it didn't work out. The timing didn't work out.
They do a great job. But so Jesse's my treasurer. I asked him, took him 3 weeks to give me an okay. And sorry to make it long, but
no.
For sure. This is good.
This is take all the time.
This is where we're at. I gave him 3 weeks. We had a beer one day. We had breakfast, and sent him a text another week, and he's like, I'm still thinking about it. Originally, he said, yes, let's do it. Let's go. And I said, hold on, man. I was like, you need to talk to the family. I was like, this isn't a small. Not only is it not a small feat, it's not something that you just want to go and do it. It might affect it. I don't know if it's going to, but it might affect your business. Mm-hmm. It might affect who does business with you. The subject here is very abrasive. I mean, when you at any point in time, when you're looking at, and I'm going to label it monopolistic, but it's probably not monopolistic, but it's very close to it. But when you're going after an economy that is highly protected, and the people of San Antonio are currently, deprived of the wages that they deserve or the education that they deserve, when you begin to go after that, there are people that are going to say, that guy has a target on his back, that guy has a target on his back.
That's politics there.
It's politics, man.
We're seeing it happening on a national, all over the place. We're seeing this.
Yep. So, long story short, 3 weeks later, he's like, F it, let's go. Let's do it. He said, I believe in what you're doing and whatever. Let's just roll. Let's just roll with it. So here we are. Campaign trail, I think we're about 2 months in after we announced, we announced slightly before, probably 2 weeks before January 15th ballot announcement. We announced the treasurer position. We announced that we were campaigning. I think the video came out shortly after that, and yeah, now we're on the campaign trail, trying to connect with as many communities that I can connect with. One of your community being one, and really just to me this isn't really campaign. It's more about talking about what the real situation is in San Antonio, and bringing that to light. And to me, that is a force it's good enough for me, right? That's the thorn in my leg that's been infected, that I'm trying to talk about and I'm trying to push, and I'm trying to bring people to the table to really understand. Because economics there's a little complexity to it, but in the end of it, it's not entirely too complex, right? You look at it and it's like, why are we the poorest, but we're the second largest? Why are we? When you begin to put these things into perspective, you're like, okay, these things make sense, but somebody's got to bring it to the table. And here we are.
Well, and I know that we had the opportunity to have a quick conversation with our last guest, Greg from Bobby's Cafe, and you've been doing a lot of that, like going out and talking to the community, kind of having that grassroots, and talking to a lot of restaurants and things. Tell us about that, what you're doing there, and like what are you hearing from those business owners?
Yeah. Not only just the business owners, right? But this is something that even before I began to talk at these, I talked about Fork Lotus Coffee last week, but even before this movement of the San Antonio Voices tour, I would always talk to business owners. I have a lot of friends who run small businesses, and I would always ask them, what are your perspectives? What are you dealing with? Bar owners, whoever they are. And it is always, rising costs, property taxes are eating me up. And it's making me it's making it very difficult for me to meet either payroll, for me to actually go into my business to scale. It seems like they're just like, as soon as they get the opportunity to scale up, something hits them. They either get a bill from the city for tax, or they either get rents raised on them. So you just have these situations where small businesses they're just afloat. And that's a conversation that I've had for my entire adult life here as a friend to these individuals who own businesses. But in the community, when I'm listening to a lot of perspectives, it's hard to ignore we're a part of the United States. We just went through an election, and everyone sees it as a contentious period, and I don't blame them. I think there's a lot of things that are said and spoken about in the media that are very important to touch on. However, what I always ask of individuals is that don't get lost in what the media is telling you. The media is there to do one thing and one thing only. It's to provide viewership, and to sell you on the fear, and to push whatever narrative that they want to push, whether it's Fox, whether it's CNN, whatever it's Bloomberg, CNBC, whatever it is. They're there to get viewers. And so when I'm interacting with the community, it's like, hey, we need to take a back step. Let's and I understand this is important to focus on, but again, we're in San Antonio. We need to focus on what we could fix here. And there are a lot of things that need to be fixed here. And the more that we focus on the other stuff, I think it's a distraction from really dealing with what we have at hand.
So what are, as far as your platform, like what are your top 3 things? Like if you get when you're elected, we'll speak in the positives. These 3 things are top priority. These are the things that the San Antonio needs to do. And it's tough, and I know because we're in Texas, so we have a city manager that does so much everything, and you can really just push agendas, right? As a mayor, so what are those that you see?
Yeah, number one is the only way that we revitalize our economy is to bring more competition from well-capitalized companies. Look, it's fact. Small business is the backbone of the U.S. economy. It's the backbone of every city. However, those things, small businesses can't succeed unless higher wages that supply the workforce allows those individuals to spend money at these small businesses. Yeah. And that's the reality of it, right? Right now, we're dealing with a competition issue. Our private sector is very well protected. We don't have enough. Okay, so we're made. I'll walk you through it. We're made up of healthcare, military, and hospitality, which is your restaurants, your tourism, your small business. When it comes to those avenues, We have some tech. We have some
But
finance.
the tech in this city has gone like this.
It's not real. To me, it's not
when
real tech.
Rackspace was there, it was great and everything.
Yeah.
But they were a losing model in the long run, and we don't have. That was our only anchor.
Yeah, and that's the thing, right? It's by nature, you do have more volatility within higher growth sectors.
Yeah.
Tech, finance, energy, you're going to experience the higher ebbs and the lower flow, the ebbs and flows of it. There's going to be more volatility. That's important. That's important to note. However, the infrastructure that we have in finance, tech, and let's say manufacturing and energy, it's not enough to really diversify our local economy. So right, when you take military out, when you take healthcare out of the equation, military, unless you're signed up with the military, you're not really benefiting from that. Unless you're a private contractor that somehow was able to get a contract with the military and you're benefiting from that. But the reality is you take military out of the equation, families are struggling here. Our GDP is highly pulled by retail trading. We have companies like H-E-B that are pulling our GDP, that are pulling, our jobs. What are the supplied jobs that we see? But to me, that's not enough, right? Because when you experience, again, we're a part of the U.S. economy. Mm-hmm. When you experience the downturns of the economy, we still get hit, right? Inflation, for instance, pandemic, we still experience that, but we experience it at a harder level because we don't benefit from all the booms of the economy. The booms of the economy would be the tech sector booming, the finance sector booming, the energy sector booming, right? We're not diversified enough to where we're not benefiting from those entirely. And so what that ends up happening, what that ends up doing to a local economy is it ends up depriving families from the opportunity to take the matters into their own hands. This is why you see graduates, they graduate from UTSA or UIW or wherever they graduate from, and the first thing they want to do is they want to go to Austin to find a job. Why? Because our sector doesn't have the opportunities. But they go to Austin, they could find a finance job, they could find a tech job. And don't get me wrong, I'm not knocking cybersecurity, but to me, it's not pulling enough here. Yeah. Other individuals want to participate in the tech sector beyond cybersecurity.
So do you see us having some growth opportunities? So my son's an engineer.
Yep.
He is at Southwest Research.
Yep.
He works specifically aerospace and things like that. I can't talk what he does. I don't know.
Yeah.
I'm stupid. But they see more and more like contracts coming in and things like that they're doing research for and stuff. We have Elon Musk, and we've south of us in Brownsville, he's got a place, and Bastrop just north of us, and so we're kind of in that middle zone. I know we've got chip manufacturers going out into Medina County, though. They're not in Bexar County. They're in Medina County.
Yep.
They're
close enough.
Close enough. Castroville, great. So we're seeing kind of, and then look at UTSA. They're building out their AI college and stuff like that, and bringing in more students. So I see that we've got like a seed.
We have a seed
for tech, right? But like, how do we water it? How do we nourish it? How do we make that grow?
So in order for wages to go up, you have to have competition to fight for the people that are working for those companies, right? So wages will not go up so long that the private sector is protected the way that it is. The only thing that allows wages to increase is when company X, out of wherever you want to call it, California, New York, New Mexico, company X comes here and says, hey, we want to compete with every other chip making business in the Medina Valley or wherever it is, right? We want to compete with them. However, there's only X amount of people that are equipped to work in that workforce. They're like, well, they begin to look at it, and this is where city leadership comes into play. They begin to look at it, and they say, okay, well, these guys are making maybe $60,000 a year. That other company comes in, and we establish a roundtable as city leadership, and we say, hey, you know what? We're going to give you the opportunity, company from New Mexico, and we're going to give 6 other companies from California and 4 other companies from New York to come and sit at this roundtable and begin to talk about how we elevate our workforce to work for your company. But in return, what I need to do is I need to increase wages by 15 to 20% or 30% to get them aligned with where we need to be. And so then that company comes in. The company has a fiduciary duty to the shareholders, right? The company doesn't give a crap about people, to be very honest with you. So it's our job as city leadership to go to the round table and sit down with them and say, this is what my fiduciary duty as mayor is to my people. My fiduciary duty right now is to protect the people, elevate wages to allow them to benefit from that so they can put food on the table again. Company has fiduciary duty to the shareholders. So through roundtables, through conferences, and you see this happen at South by Southwest, Consensus during the crypto conference, Consensus in Austin, you see these roundtables occurring between whether it's city leadership or companies talking about, hey, we're looking at this space in San Antonio, or we're looking at this space in Austin, or in Bastrop in that case, or in Boca Chica down in the valley, I guess you could call it.
There.
So you begin to have these roundtables. As city leadership, you must infuse these roundtables into the local economy, and you begin to talk about how do we align your shareholder interest with my citizen interest, and you begin to talk about those things, and you try to make a competitive space to where it can work. Again, free markets function the way that they do, right? The best way that free markets function in the United States, the reason we're the strongest economy, is because that they function the way that we do when government stands behind. Don't get me wrong. Government has a duty to regulate where they see unfairness or monopolistic environments or situations that aren't benefiting the free market. But when free markets are doing their thing, they perform well, right? Because when competition is fighting for that workforce, and you can infuse that conversation of, I need you to elevate wages by 20% in this conversation. And in return, we're going to get you a tax abatement, but you have to hire within 30%, 40% workforce of San Antonians. Yeah. So you have to be able to meet those things. The important part of that is San Antonians have a responsibility as well. These companies have a demand for what their workforce requires, right? So our citizens, us, we have a responsibility to elevate our education, our workforce knowledge, our interpretation of how are we going to fit there.
Our urban core.
Yep, our urban core. I mean, all of those details, right? We have a responsibility as citizens as well. It's not just companies coming in here and saying, yeah, we're going to hire everyone.
We got to make the city attractive.
Yeah, we got to make it attractive. And that's where we come in, right? As citizens, that's where we come in. Is we say, okay, if we understand that these companies need X and we can fill X, then let's get it there. And sometimes we can't fill X in the immediate term, so we begin to talk to universities, whether it's Trinity, UIW, UTSA, and we begin to infuse those workshops, on a Saturday or Sunday. Hey, this company is coming into town and they're going to provide free education for it to get our infrastructure, but for 6 months, you're going to have to be there every Saturday and Sunday for 8 hours. And then at the end of that, you're going to have the opportunity to work with this company. Why? Because you're going to have the knowledge to fulfill their needs. So there's different responsibilities on how we tier it, but you asked me first three things. The most important things is infusing those conversations into our private sector space, from well-capitalized companies, publicly traded companies, to public safety. When you look at around town, I mean, I have many individuals. I would say women that would feel less safe being, going out, like my mom, for instance, or my fiance, feel less safe going out to pump gas because there are just a lot of things happening throughout the city, and they want to feel safe. And don't get me wrong, I met
You're saying a lot of things going on. There are people that may not have homes that are coming up to people and that's acting crazy. Like they're acting crazy. Like there's people that more and more people are acting. I have 4 daughters.
Yep.
Like this is very. Like,
go ahead.
I'd say so. Thea is 18, 19, so 7 years ago-ish. I think probably 11, 12, we had the last Final Four here in San Antonio. Maroon 5 did a free concert downtown. My 12-year-old daughter went there with her brothers, their teenagers and stuff like that. Had no qualms. They had a great time. No parents around, nothing. I have a 12-year-old again, and we're having the Final Four coming up again. And if there's free, Thea was asking to say, "Oh, I hope they have a free concert." I was like, "I don't know if I want Elena to go down there now."
Right.
It's a different, but it's so.
It is. And and so public safety is one, and it's not just. And I'm gonna, again, homelessness is the third one, but I'm gonna dive deeper into that one. It's not just the homeless population that is endangering. What I would say is making individuals or citizens feel a little bit endangered. It's also just crime that's happening around town. I mean, if you hop in your Ring app and you look at last night's news, you're probably going to find someone that's walked up to a car, gun in hand, checking cars to break into it. I mean, that's common throughout our city. So it's situations like that that are making people feel unsafe. So public safety is probably number 2 to that. And then the third one is, of course, our homelessness issue. But homelessness has probably two parts to it. It's an addiction issue, or it's a mental incapacitation issue, in my perspective. Right? There's always a reason why. I mean, if you've ever spent time to actually go and sit down with someone who is dealing with homelessness, you will understand that there are things that have happened in that individual's life that have made it hard for them to be a citizen of society that's participating in society the way that it should be, right? And it's not entirely their fault. Don't get me wrong. I don't want to say that it's not. I don't want to say that they're to blame, but there's always catalysts or there's stories behind the scenes, whether it's dealing with a mental health issue or it's dealing with an addiction issue that have spiraled them into that situation. 5 years prior, some of these individuals were working individuals. They were participating. Maybe they just lost their job and something happened and they spiraled into it. I mean, we're all human. We all know how it goes, right? Like one bad night could go into a one bad week. One bad week could go into one bad month.
Yeah.
I mean, you know how it goes. I mean, we're human.
You've seen it.
Yeah. So dealing with the real issue of what's causing homelessness is probably a very important aspect of what my opportunity at the mayor's seat would be.
Yeah, touching on the mental health aspect of everything, we haven't done like there's such a limited resources it feels like for that, and it's you don't want to see it go back to the way it was in the 1920s where you had these insane asylums, where you have like all the horror movies all start from here. You have Gotham,
right.
But at the same time, it's like some of these people need full-time care, and
of course.
And it's always it's a hard thing to ask for like tax dollars and things like that. But at the same time, it's like I was walking down. We went to NOLA beignets and stuff on Sunday.
Broadway.
On Broadway, and I was walking. It's little things like this. I was walking down the sidewalk, and we got the different colored bricks laid out, and it's like we spend money to make our sidewalks pretty, so people feel good. But like we've got people that need help, and we don't want to spend the money there. Which, again, not to be crass or anything, but beautifies our city by giving them a place to be, other than on the corner, like disheveled and stuff like that.
Yeah,
So,
I mean, look, shout out to Chef Peter, by the way, at NOLA. We used to share an office building.
We did appetizer beignets and dessert beignets.
That place is the best, man. That place is the best. Look, don't get me wrong. The government should, the municipality, our local government, should step in to fill gaps when it comes to these types of issues, right? Because that's what we're here for. We're here for the citizens. Mm-hmm. At the same variable, the private sector needs to step it up. The fact that, we have USA in town, Frostbank in town, Toyota in town, the list goes on. HEB. And that nobody in the private sector is stepping up enough to deal with this is what makes me angry, right? That's what makes me want to say, well, if you guys aren't going to step it up, we're going to start to bring in more competition that'll elevate the playing field.
And I feel like some of that, like we've had some other people on here before that talked about they were working on building like affordable housing, doing different things like that to help curb some of the homelessness stuff. And they ran into issues with the city on letting them do the things. So I know like I seen some stuff, Pastor Jimmy Robles with Last Chance Ministries. He was trying to make like a tiny home community on a piece of land that they had. And they ran into all kinds of issues setting that up.
Like permitting and all that?
Yeah, and they weren't able to actually open that up there.
Well, we definitely went on here.
That's another mess, brother.
It sucks.
And
it's so hard.
I feel like sometimes there's too many layers to be able to do stuff for some of the private sector to step in and help because they run into all of these issues on doing that.
Yeah, they're just not organized. When you look at the permit, I mean, if you ever pulled a permit, I pulled a permit and knocked down
I can
the
give
wall.
you the word. I can give you the.
Please.
So my dad and his partner are building a duplex.
Okay.
Kind of arena district area.
Yeah.
Not too far from the
District 2?
Yep. District 2. Anyways.
Tell me, man.
The city councilman there is denies everything first.
Wow.
And then it's just a hindrance, and they do it in the best interest of the community if they will, because I'm going to deny it so we can get more research and find out and make sure that we're doing for affordable housing and things like that. And it's all bullshit. Like so we're building a duplex. We've had to go down into the board of adjustments and things like that. And because it's a multifamily, it's considered affordable housing, but it's no more affordable. It's what's there now
Right.
is cheaper.
Right.
It's still more expensive. Like the whole word affordable housing, but just for that process, we had to get it platted. You have a property, a lot that's big enough for a duplex, that's zoned multifamily 13, so it can have a duplex, and because of where it's at, the first thing it was an empty lot. The first thing that we had to do is get it platted. That's $22,000,
Right.
give or take. It's not a little less, a little more.
It already had a survey.
It already had a survey.
Wow.
And here's the reason. And when going down, it's like they had. This is so jacked up. They had if we were going to build a single family home on there, we only had to have a deed going back to the 1960s or whatever, which we did. So that showed that lot was that lot, and it's been that lot since the 60s. But because it's multifamily, we had to have a deed the original deed that goes back to prior to July 14th, 1927 is the
How
date.
are you able to find that?
You can't.
Yeah, I was gonna say there's
It's
probably
not,
no record out
and
there.
that means you hire an engineering company to do a plat for $22,000. Now that's a lot of money when building a duplex that you're trying to make affordable housing for.
Right.
Not even to mention that because it was a single, there's a lot of problems with it. Talking about the communication and the delays. San Antonio Water System, they showed it as a single family home, right? So they went out when we ordered the meters, even though we're getting it platted and we showed the plans that show a duplex, they only
They're
paid
metering as a single.
meter as a
Oh,
single.
dude, no.
So now we had to go back, and now we're at it's a whole issue. We're still trying to get a second meter out there with SAWS because we can't get a certificate of occupancy. And without a C of O, you can't rent it, you can't sell it. We've got a duplex that's been built for 2 months,
Waiting to serve people.
waiting to give affordable housing in District 2
You got $400,000 sitting there paying interest
Yeah.
on that you can't do nothing with.
every month.
You
And these
hear
are
that
not,
a
we're
lot.
not rich people. Like, we were middle class people trying to make it in this world.
Right.
We're building a duplex, multifamily, affordable housing. Like rent, and those things will rent out for $1,800 to $2,000 a month.
Right.
3-bedroom, 2-bath, great little place, brand new, counter everything like that. And we can't do it. We can't offer that to people because the city can't talk to SAWS, it can't talk to C. It's a bureaucratic nightmare.
Yeah.
Like literally going down to I went down to the Bexar County to the courthouse and say, hey, I'm here to help you find a deed. Let's go through the old paper records and say, let's find it.
Yeah.
To save $22,000, we still can't do it. It's like it's those little things. And when you add buying the lot, then building, which the construction cost is crazy. Then you have to have labor, and now because of the things on a national level. Wherever you get your labor from, it's more expensive
now.
It's
Yeah.
more expensive now.
Yeah.
Like,
Yeah.
it is what it is.
Yeah.
It's supply and demand.
Yeah.
And so, like, you keep driving all these costs up and then tell me, but I need affordable housing. The fuck?
Yeah.
It's like,
No,
the math ain't mathing.
Right.
So that's my frustration in a nutshell.
You're not wrong. You're not wrong in that. I meet a lot of individuals. I used to have a client who flipped houses in the East Side, and you meet a lot of individuals that run into issues with the city when it comes to permitting, when it comes to getting approval, whether it's getting a stop work order because of some kind of miscommunication between Department X and Department Y. I mean, you see this across the board, across our city services. So step one, is one of the things that I've always talked about is being able to conduct a successful audit between not only the budget, but also departments within the city. Where are we
Successful
wasting
audit.
so much money, man? Like, where are we losing money? And
we need to hire some
pinpointing that.
19-year-old kids to come in there and find out.
That's right. I mean, yeah, it's funny. Now it's the story, right? It's like Doe came into effect or whatever.
But that's been going around. Like Bill Clinton and Al Gore called it like the realignment of like they did the same thing back in the 2000. Like it's not new.
right. This is nothing new.
But
I agree.
But every time somebody tries to go in there and make the changes, they're like, "Oh, we're not allowed to make the changes," and
Right.
it's different. But the I was going to I forgot. I lost my train of thought. I was going to say something else. But go ahead.
My biggest thing with the city right now, and we've talked about it a few times, is like they rolled out these new licenses that
That's
the
what I was gonna
contractors
bring-
have to get.
What is that?
They rolled out new licenses that contractors have to get
Okay.
now.
General contractor.
General contractors, and they have to take, I think it's like a 4-hour test.
Oh wow.
It's open book, and
This
everybody
is
I've
per
talked
city.
to fails it.
These are city. This is a city thing. It's not a
you
state.
can't take it at the state level.
I don't even know.
I'm not sure.
I know that like each city, it's something that San Antonio just implemented for all their general contractors. They now have to get this license that they have passed this test.
Okay.
It's not. It doesn't. It's not for Houston. It's just San Antonio is a requirement. Like if you go to Castroville, they don't necessarily have that requirement. It's a city ordinance.
It's a city ordinance.
And so here's my question when it comes to that. It sounds like on paper, it goes back to bureaucrats have to bureaucrat, right? If they're not making new regulations, that are they really working?
Right.
And we see it with the building codes. We see it with everything. It's like they have to add more codes. Otherwise, they're not. Same with the tax laws. If we don't add more laws, then are we legislating? And we already have a permitting and inspection process.
Right.
Right, so that means if we have an electrical guy come out there, electrical has to pull the permit. It has to have a licensed contractor already to be able to pull that permit, and then the city's going to go and inspect it.
Right.
Right, so we're good on safety.
Right.
So why do we have to have another level of licensing?
They want to make their money, right?
Gotta wait, gotta make our money.
Well, in
it's
my
another
opinion,
level of bullshit.
In my opinion, the hardest part of that is a lot of the people going out and having to take this test.
Barely speak
They're
English.
like tradespeople. They might not be the best at going and taking a test.
Right.
But now we're taking away what they're able to do for a living to contribute to the city.
Right.
Because they couldn't pass a test.
Do they offer any kind of education preparation? I doubt they do,
They offer,
by the way.
I think it's like an 1,800-page book.
Oh, yeah. That book ain't going to do it for most people. Most people have, literacy problems here, too.
Yeah.
So it's like, I think I was talking to a teacher the other day. We're at a third grade. Average literacy rate, I think, here in San Antonio is third grade level. It's like, so what are they going to do with an 1,800-page book?
That's my chat.
But they know how to fix a house. Like they know how to build houses.
Yeah.
When
Like,
I tell ChatGPT to write my stuff, I ask to write it in the 8th grade reading level.
Yeah.
So everybody understands.
Yeah.
Kind
Which
of
he could really just do it himself because that's where his reading
Right.
level is.
For sure.
That's messed up, man.
I've heard.
No, I agree with you, though. I mean, implementing these kind of things. There's so many other things that the city could focus on, in my opinion, to better the lives of citizens. And to me, it's just, I want to call it incompetence.
Yeah.
It's incompetence.
And I understand, like, from a high level view, it might be like, okay, we're prioritizing safety.
But it's
But
all
when you
it's all
really break it
semantics.
down
But
and
the
look
safety
at
measure is there, though. Like you said, getting
Yeah.
that permit, getting the approval from the city, and it's just like you have the rough-in approval first, and then you have the sealing of the wall and whatever. So there's multiple approvals that are happening.
Yeah. Well, it's crazy to me.
Yeah.
And again, it goes back to like justifying a job. If I'm not legislating, then I'm not a legislator. And it's like just making laws and rules. Again, it's one of those feel good types of rules. It's like, oh, it's for safety, and then everybody's like, oh, okay, then we can do it.
Yeah.
But it's bullshit safety.
Right.
But it has the appearance, so it's like.
Well, San Antonio has a reputation of doing that, right? That's why we build parks, and we say that life is dandy. But at the end of the day, we still have single parents that are struggling. Four-person families struggling as well, but single parents that are struggling. But hey, we got parks that we could go and walk on.
We're putting the covers on the playground so they're not too high.
I mean, my biggest pushback also is.
I love our trail system. 80 miles.
It's
It's
nice.
a great trail.
Don't get me wrong, it's beautiful. Hardburger Park, right by the Elon Market, like all this stuff, it's beautiful. I love it.
Yeah.
But let's prioritize.
But that's
how to
private
fix
stuff.
This
That
city.
should be private money.
Of course,
That
it
should
should
be-
be.
it should be private money.
Yeah, it should be funded by the private sector. To me, the private sector is just not stepping it up.
So, like, growing up, we lived on Salado Creek,
Okay.
and we had 11 acres that, like, the land went through there on the southeast side. And the city basically, like, strong-armed my family to, like, sell them that land to where they can build that hike and bike trail, the Salado Creek one.
Yep.
And so they ended up just, like, selling the property to somebody else, and they divided that up and sold it to the city. But, yeah, it's same thing, like, is it necessary? Maybe not. Like, it's nice to have.
To me, it's backwards. Look, I believe in having spaces like parks and having heritage sites. Very important part of our culture. If you're from here, You've been here since '89. That's long enough for me. But if you're from here and you've been here long enough, you know that these things are important to us as San Antonians. But the most important factor is that families should be well taken care of before we start focusing on these things. There's a project that just got built, $15 million World Heritage Center in the south side of San Antonio, I believe. $15 million.
It's a lot of money.
That's a lot of money, dude. For poverty rates to still be at 20%, and we're spending $15 million on a heritage site.
We could build a lot of 1,200 square foot homes for that.
And the same thing.
That's my issue.
Yeah.
Same thing on that. Like we've talked about in the past. Like you're saving the old buildings, like the house that's in the Alamo Dome parking lot, and like the old things like that.
Tear it
You're like,
down.
oh, it's old. We gotta save it. And it's like, man, how much did it cost y'all to save that? And then you have to add on costs to keep it upkeep and maintenance and things like that. It's a waste. It's sitting there. It might be a storage
that's a hard
unit.
one to do too, though, because like everybody wants to like remember the past and everything.
Yeah, you're trying to preserve nostalgia, you're trying to preserve culture, and I get it, but there are methodologies to preserve those things and actually create a return on investment.
Yeah.
There's a way to use the HOT, the hotel occupancy tax, in a method that promotes tourism, but also that incentivizes a return on investment from corporations. There's methodologies to do it. They're just not creative enough to me. I mean, they're just the people that are running this stuff, they're not thinking. Or they're not, maybe they are thinking and they're just being negligent, but they're not putting the perspective of my fiduciary duty is to my citizens. The citizens of San Antonio should be at every step of our way whenever we're using this money.
So what are your thoughts on Project Marvel?
It's trash, man. I honestly, it's trash. And I'll tell you why it's trash. What that is going to do to our infrastructure, I'll give you one example. One very prime example. You begin to build out Project Marvel with the perspectives, the small-minded perspectives that San Antonio currently has, that is going to limit economic opportunity 5 years from now. One perfect example would be San Antonio Missions and Spurs going downtown or whatever, the city funding it.
Missions I have a real problem with.
Missions big.
Nelson Wolf gets too much shit.
He does.
Way too much. Whatever he wants,
Yeah.
he gets.
Yeah.
And we have no need for a baseball team downtown.
No, we don't. Especially not minor league. Minor league, and
Are you
people
talking about practice?
I get messages all the time. They're like, "Well, the Missions isn't part of Project Marvel," and I'm like, "All of it is connected,
It's all
guys.
connected.
It's all connected.
It's
There's
all
a reason they're building the infrastructure of the entertainment sports district." Now, when you have perspectives for minor league, 5 years from now, when I can have a conversation with the NFL or the MLB to actually get serious about moving into San Antonio, they're going to look at capacity of minor league stadium and they're going to say, it's at this much capacity. I need something that's triple that.
Give me $100 million.
Right. What they're gonna end up doing is looking across the 35 corridor, and they're gonna say, well, if we could bring in, because MLB would be good to get some people from Austin into town. Maybe let's just build it right outside of Shirts because there's space. Downtown has lost that opportunity. Why? Because of the build out that already happened. So that's one issue that I have with it. Another issue is that wages aren't going to sustain life there. You're going to have a rotation of different, whether it's mom and pop or corporations that are going to open a restaurant or open something, and they're going to close just like they are today. They're
That's the
gonna
one
close
thing
within
I
2
don't
years.
see. My following my daughter's volleyball career, we got to go to a lot of convention downtown centers all over.
Yeah.
And one of the worst downtowns in the world is Indianapolis.
Never been, but I believe you.
It's a shithole. But they're building a park and soccer fields and all this stuff and trying to do that urban thing, but there's no local restaurants. There's a sugar factory. There's Chick-fil-A. There's Chipotle. There's all these chains.
Yep.
And to me, it's like, if I go to somewhere, if I go out of town and I'm in downtown wherever, I don't want to go to somewhere I can go back home. I want to experience your town.
The culture of Indianapolis,
And
right?
that's the thing.
Or
Is
Indiana,
Indianapolis, yeah. Kansas City has a great town. It's fun. There's different ones. Dallas sucks. Houston's great. But it's also about being inviting for weekend kind of stuff. Dallas's downtown around their convention is just business.
Yeah.
And so weekends it's dead.
Yeah.
And so you want to find that where you're thriving 7 days a week and everything, but Like, how do we make sure that it's mom and pop shops
Yeah.
in there, and we're not having another Grimaldi's?
This is actually right in my policies, and I may put. I was going to release it on the 22nd of February, but I think I'm going to push back because I want to continue to have these conversations before people begin to read into the details. But there's a twofold process to my policy in preserving culture during a time of gentrification, is what we'll call it.
It's my favorite word.
Step one is you have to have an effective economics team that is watching all districts of San Antonio. Watching all districts, what's pulling from those districts to be able to help the citizens. Number one, to be able to vitalize the economy. Number two, productivity is the measure that creates opportunities for family, right? If a certain part of the city is not productive, it's not going to create an opportunity. We've seen that with District 2, with the AT&T Stadium. What productivity is happening around the AT&T Stadium? Zero.
But that goes to, I interrupt, but continue with that, because when they built that, they had a better option. Where Hero Stadium is now, that little quarry area at Thousand Oaks and Wurzbach Parkway.
Blossom?
Not Blossom. That's up.
Okay.
So right there off Thousand Oaks, almost on 35.
With
It's
where
where
Star
Star
Soccer
Soccer.
FC's at.
Star Soccer.
Yep.
Yes.
Okay,
So
yeah.
that was it was going to be there to build an arena and restaurants and apartments and all that shit that's going to be been really great,
Right.
and could be sustained by it's north side though, and the east side. It's like all the north side gets everything, and I'm not a north sider, but it's like you got to go where the money is sometimes if you want to sustain and build up a city. And they built it right there. Willow Springs still sucks. Nobody goes there. It's like it's nothing built around it because it was such a wrong decision. How do we stop making those wrong decisions?
I don't think that it was entirely a wrong decision. Don't get me wrong. I do think that there should have been, again, San Antonio works, again, ass backwards when it comes to trying to fulfill the equation of economic revitalization. Our city leadership has not done things the way that I think they should have done it to economically revitalize a district. Mm-hmm. When you don't have enough competition that's coming into a play, and where you're allowing them to start to create conversations around the AT&T Center, then that ultimately will deter businesses from wanting to flourish there. Now, I've been in the past two town halls with my friend Tommy Calvert, Commissioner Calvert, Precinct 4. I've been in the past two town halls. Literally, the last one I sat there I think it was 3 hours. Sat there and listened to every individual that walked up to the mic. I don't think I saw any other mayor candidate sit there and listen to every individual that went up there and spoke. And this is why I believe that District 2 should be protected in this sense. And I know it may be different from your perspective.
Yeah.
But there are promises that the San Antonio Spurs made to that community.
Okay.
And those promises, to me, need to be fulfilled by the private sector, by the Spurs organization, by the companies that would, again, partner with the Spurs in that capacity. And if that's not going to be happening, then why are we going to put our tax dollars to waste, again, to fulfill what they need to be fulfilled? They're part of the private sector. Do y'all's thing. You know, small businesses, when we struggle, we cut people, we work overtime, we, buy supplies, and we try to make it work. So I do think that there is a duty to the District 2 community, right? Because to me, that's what they have going for them. And unless that gets built out, it's not going to happen. It's not going to happen. It's going to be very hard to revitalize that community. So I do think they need to fulfill that promise.
I think they started too late doing things down there. Like, they just opened up the Handy. I'm not sure if you've seen that.
The Andy, yeah.
Yeah, the Andy.
Yeah.
It's like apartments, but retail spaces.
Okay.
And like
Coffee shop in there,
office
right?
spaces. So where
Safe
you
houses
can go,
in there, I've heard.
They
I
got
haven't
like
been,
all
but I've
kinds of
heard.
different things in there. But I feel like they opened up some of those things too late.
They did.
And then like looking around there, like you have Coca-Cola factory down there, you have some different things down there.
Stock Show and Rodeo's been there.
There's not a ton of good space for businesses to come in and do that. And then Spurs went downhill the last however many years. Now that we finally have some hope to start going in the right direction. But the city's just different when the Spurs are good.
Yeah, I mean, the city wakes up. I mean, it's
true.
like it revitalizes the community to be like, hey, we're supporting our Spurs, and everyone comes out and shows up. That's part of San Antonio culture, right? Like, that's who we are. When we'll go back and look at every championship that we've won, the city wakes up, man. The city wakes up and they come out. Yeah. And it doesn't feel that way anymore, right? It feels a little bit different. And again, it's the Spurs organization to me isn't what it used to be, but it's still a great league. It's still a great organization.
It's going to be hard because they've already, with them building the rock out there at the rim and stuff like that.
That was another screw up in my opinion.
They are moving away. Like they've already made their move.
Yeah.
Like it's as far as where they're at.
Yeah.
They have no commitment to that community.
Yeah.
At this point.
No, I agree with you. I mean, the biggest contention of sitting through those town halls is them calling him out. There was a Spurs organization, not one of the owners, but one of the representatives there, and everyone's just beating on this guy, man. They're just like, they're going at him because it's like
they sent him there to get beat up.
They did, man. But it's
what's his name? Sacrificial lamb,
right? But I mean, but it's true, man. It's like they're starting to build all these things out. The Spurs are playing. I was in Austin for some time, and we went to a couple of games I think out there. The Spurs are starting to play in Austin. Like you could tell the Spurs organization is open to looking at other areas. Yeah. Again, back to
that's basketball in general, though. Like the whole NBA is down.
But what I'm saying is the duty is to the shareholders.
For sure.
That's who their duty is. It's not the people, but as city leaders, we need to.
I will say Holt has stayed there on the east side or southeast side, and kept there. They've expanded
that whole
ground. Yeah.
Yep.
So I mean, I would say they've kept part of that there in the area instead of trying to move it out. I mean, no. I mean, they've.
But we've seen a lot of growth. There's a lot of growth going out there, like houses and stuff.
Texas A&M getting built out there.
Mm-hmm. They're supposed to do like 4,000 houses right across the highway from.
I've heard about that. University Health Methodist aren't they doing something over
University just opened up one down by Palo Alto. They're spreading out hospitals a lot more.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So there's stuff coming.
Yeah.
Rigsby and 410 just got a Chick-fil-A. Like I live in that area.
There you go.
We're coming up. We got a Chick-fil-A now.
I think things are slowly starting to happen, but this is why 2025 is such an important election. It's individuals need to think about is your current leadership and the people who are running, are they putting you first or are they putting politics first? Are they putting families first or are they putting their career to Washington or their career to a governor's seat first? And that's the perspective that people need to think about.
And that thing is, I would say I'm not huge into I don't like to get involved in politics as far as supporting people because they all suck.
They do suck. No, I agree. I don't suck. I'm not a politician. I'm running, but I'm not a politician.
As a Gen Xer, I could not be more disillusioned about government and all that stuff. But I will say that voting in your local elections, your local city council, your local mayor, these are the most important elections to take part in because this is where you can really have a voice. Something that we heard is there's such a low turnout.
There is.
In the mayoral and just local elections, and this is something we heard before from Lorenzo, is that this is where you can really make a change.
Yeah.
It doesn't take the 50% of San Antonio. You can make a change if you get the right people and get some support in San Antonio. With a small basis, you can make some moves, and this is the time to find your candidate that is going to do the things that you want to have done. And there's a lot that needs to be done in San Antonio.
There is.
And everybody should go out and vote for sure. 100%.
They should. You're not wrong. Lorenzo's not wrong. We are low turnout. It's no coincidence. I tell everyone this. It's no coincidence that voting day is on during Fiesta. It's during the pachanga that's happening downtown. There's a reason for that, right? Because, hey, if they do it during Fiesta, less of you are going to show up that are poor, and you're not going to be able to dictate where this city goes. But today, again, this is the most important piece of our history to come. Yeah. 2025 mayoral election, you voting for someone that is representative of what your family needs, of what you need, is very important.
We're on the cusp of a whole new future.
Yeah, we are.
These last 3-4 years and everything, after the COVID, after the last national election and everything that's going on in the world, the world's changing with AI, with robotics, with we have to have local representation that's going to protect our community.
Absolutely.
In those regards.
Absolutely. And what's going to be able to give us a fighting chance. I mean, if you look at the landscape, you said world, what's happening in the world.
Yeah.
We are in competition with the other high growth economies of the world, whether it's China, whether it's Russia, The United States they're fighting. We saw news. I don't know if you saw DeepSeek's information that came out, hit the AI technology space. Yep. Markets took a hit for a good 2 days. Big hit. If anyone was looking at their retirement account at that time, they would have been like, holy, like this is bad.
Mau, what are you doing?
It's not me, man.
That's a different Mau.
But that's the realistic aspect of where the world is currently at, and people they don't think about that enough. It's like, hey, the global stuff is going to affect us here, so you need to elect local leadership that is going to be able to help you fill those gaps from what we're going to experience on the global scale.
And I think San Antonio's right, because we really are. Where we're positioned with, I think there's a good chance that our relationships with Mexico and trade and stuff like that are actually going to get better. I know people feel like we're taking a step back, but I think, in my opinion, and I could be wrong, like from a global standpoint, I think we're moving more production stuff, not necessarily America, but just to North America.
Yeah,
in general, and it's going to be able to allow us to flourish together.
Look,
that's my hope.
Look, I'm Mexican, but I don't believe that going south to create infrastructure and supply chains is the way to do it. The U.S. economy is the strongest economy for a reason, and we have to protect that, especially in a period like today, where we're competing against Russia. I mean, I don't know if you've read Ray Dalio or seen any of Ray Dalio's videos on.
I watched him on All In podcast recently.
So Ray Dalio talks about some very interesting details of how the U.S. is at that last stage of the dynasty falling. It's very real, man. And the more that we begin to not protect United States interest in every capacity, the closer we are to that happening. Yeah. And to me, it's you have to protect the U.S. interest. You have to. Today. Like, especially today.
But I think one of the things that you said that really caught my attention is that F word, fiduciary.
Fiduciary, baby.
But I think government as a whole, especially recently, but it's felt like it's turned from, like, they're protecting us to they're protecting them. And I think a lot of people have that mindset. The mayor, the governor, the president, whatever it might be, is not in the interest of the people. It's in the interest of them and the government.
Yeah.
So with that fiduciary, and we do real estate, so we're familiar with the fiduciary. Yeah. But like really getting people to understand, like, hey, we're putting your best interest, and this is what we say in real estate, like we're putting your best interest above everybody else's, even our own.
Yep.
Yeah.
And when people realize that, I think that'll get people to the polls more.
Yeah, and you have to. I mean, one of the actions that I have in policy is that if I could implement some kind of contract or bylaws that are passed at City Hall, that there's an agreement between everybody who is a participant, from the districts to the mayor's seat, that there is an analysis or a measure to where if you are not acting in the capacity of a fiduciary, you are due for a vote to get out. And that should be prevalent, right? Because people right now have lost faith in local politics, in local government. They've lost faith in national government. Nobody has faith in anybody in politics anymore. That's the reality of where we're at. And we have to earn the public's support again. And that is easier said than done, but there are methods to do that. It's, you put transparency within the office, whether it's through a media group that is producing transparent meeting dialogues and meeting videos and meeting audio and a public ledger that lets you know who is actually benefiting from the budget at real time. There are certain things that need to be there for us to get the public.
Put our budget in the blockchain.
Yeah,
Let's
man.
go, baby.
It needs to.
I'm all for that.
We need to transpire to acquire the public's, support
we have technology
again.
to. There's no reason why we should have as secretive of a government as we do.
Right.
Like there's only bad things happen in secrecy.
Yeah.
And like we have the ability to make it where we know exactly where everything's going, like checks and balances. Like having an audit, and it's, again, I'm not supporting any parties or anything like that, but like getting back to a zero basis.
Yeah.
And this is what David Friedberg, when he talks with on All In Pod, he Ray Dalio.
Okay.
They go back to a zero basis.
Yep.
And like everybody's like, oh, why are you cutting everything, right? But sometimes you cut everything and then pit it back based on merit and justification and stuff like that. But at first, it's like we got to start from scratch. We got to start from scratch and build back up because we have too much bullshit.
Yeah, the reality is that people think that for the past, we'll say for the past 10 years, people think that there isn't corruption that has been transpiring throughout our government systems. Like, wake up, guys. Like, it's very easy to infiltrate a government structure.
I think it goes back to the beginning. Like, I don't
Beginning
think
of time,
just 10 years, but
I say 10 years because I say 10 years.
In 1955, Eisenhower, in his speech when he was leaving office, mentioned for the first time ever the military-industrial complex.
Yeah.
And it's been going since there. And, like, you look, love him or hate him, Elon Musk is a great businessman.
I agree.
And what he's been able to do from a zero-cost basis, okay, what's the cheapest way? Like, and if reading anything about him, like when he started SpaceX, he told them they're part of the Department of Defense. They have all of these little regulations. They have to use certain parts and pieces and stuff, and even down to a valve. He's like his what he told all of his engineers says, like, if it does not break the laws of physics, then it doesn't exist. If it's no bureaucratic rule that we're going to follow. Instead of using a valve that costs $3,000, they go down to O'Reilly's Auto Parts and get the same valve for $2.
Right.
And that's why they're sending up rockets and catching them for millions of dollars instead of hundreds of millions of dollars, and then going out and rescuing these people, because those have all been cost plus.
Yep.
And there's cost, whatever the cost is, plus their profit. So there's no reason to not go over on the cost.
Yep.
And so we have to break that all down again, and start from the beginning, start from zero. It's like throw all these regulations, and I don't want to say throw out all the building codes and stuff like that, but it's similar in our industry. It's like we have so many building codes on top of on one of another that makes it, instead of, and this is sound crass again, instead of 10,000 out of every 100 million people died, now 9,999 are going to die. So we now have to do this other thing because we're going to save one person's life out of 100,000. But it's going to cost us 10 times the amount of cost.
Right.
And so now we don't have affordable housing.
Right.
Like, how do we get San Antonio back to a place where we're just, even for the regulations, not even just the budgetary, but even from a regulation, okay, what's really important? It's like, can we stop? Like at what point do we stop adding building codes?
Right. You have to, and again, this is all going to come down to if citizens want it, if San Antonio wants it. I wanted to point something out. There's a good documentary with Elon Musk whenever he was building SpaceX, and it walks you through every stage of failure and talks about exactly what you just spoke about. And I implore anyone that hates Elon Musk, right? Because there's a lot of people that right now they hate Elon Musk, but they're listening to me. They're listening to the media too much. Watch that documentary and understand ideally what they did to build SpaceX, and that's going to give you a different appreciation for who he is as a business person. I'm gonna throw that out first.
He's still an asshole.
Yeah.
I read his biography. Walter Isaacson did a great biography of him, and I trust him. I actually trust what he's doing, for right or wrong. But he's an asshole. At the end of the day,
I think everyone has a little asshole in them.
I got a lot of it.
Right? That's what I'm saying. It's like we all have our traits. Like some people immediately meet me and they think I'm an asshole, and then they get to know me 2 weeks later and they're like, "You're actually really nice." And I'm like, "Yeah, you just had to talk to me, have a real conversation with me. Don't make the assumption." I think everyone has a little asshole in them. Yeah. It's just about, are they a good human being or not? Are they there for the best interests of the people or whatever service that they're doing? But to answer your question is, San Antonians have to be very open-minded to that change. Now, every change comes with pain. Like that's something that's inevitable. Like every change comes with pain. Where those pain points are going to sit at in our local build-out or local infrastructure, that's yet to be determined, right? We have to open the veil or open the curtain to understand where do we need to change in terms of building code? Who do we need to fire when it comes to these departments? What kind of changes do we have to make within the budget system that certain viewers or certain media groups are going to say, well, why are they cutting that if that provides families with, well, we're cutting that because it provides, in the long run, it'll help children get a better education, or in the long run, it'll help feed more families that are currently struggling because whatever's happening right now isn't working. And so every time I go and speak like these mayoral forums or I get interviewed, we have to change the status quo of what San Antonio has been used to for. I've been alive 35 years, but this has been longer. Yeah. We have to change the status quo of what we're used to, and that takes a very open mind. And the question is do enough citizens out there in San Antonio have that open mind to entertain these conversations and ask these questions? Or are they going to be immediately turned off about the idea and say, no, screw that, that guy's an asshole, we're not going to listen to it? And that's the question that we need to ask ourselves as voters is, can we sit down and really have a dialogue about what's important here? Or are we just going to be polarized and not actually have a conversation about the real issues? And that's the basis of it. It's in the campaign race, there's 20 people running. In the campaign race, there's a lot of people running. I ran into one of the other candidates. Not gonna mention names because I don't give shout outs. But I met another campaign manager and I said, look, I've seen that you've been stalking my Instagram. Love it. I was like, I get it. That's what we do.
I think I saw you tagged him, huh?
I sure did, brother. I sure did, man. I said, look. I was like, people were messaging me, why'd you do that? And I'm like, well, I'm explaining it right now. I ran into him and I said, look, I see you stalking my book. I was like, I get it. I understand. You're working a campaign. You're trying to win a race. I was like, but at the end of the day, this isn't about who wins this race. This is about listening to the people of San Antonio, interpreting what needs to get done, and fixing it. And so I said, me tagging you or posting that you were following in this should have been, introduce yourself, brother. Quit watching my stories and send me a message. That was me basically saying, send me a message. Let's have a conversation. And let's actually talk about the real issues in an open forum, whether it's at a restaurant, a stadium, a venue, and let's actually talk about it with the community. Let's let the community ask questions. I was like, but quit stalking me, dude. Like, what needs to get fixed here is bigger than you and I. It's bigger. It's not about who wins this. It's about let's put the perspectives of the people, the citizens who really need it, and let's put it out there.
If I win, take some of my ideas. If you win, like. You know what
I mean? Exactly.
Let the best ideas win.
Exactly. That's what this is about. But people are like, they're so polarized. Like every candidate's like, oh, I don't want to talk to this person, but I'm going to study them from afar. And I've had all these people watching the stories because I'm putting a bunch of videos. If you're not following Mau for Mayor on Instagram.
Mau for Mayor.
MAU for Mayor. But I'm putting a lot of videos out and I'm like, I'm hoping some of these people, have your campaign manager reach out. Let's have the forum. Let's have these conversations about what's important because it's not happening enough.
Let's make San Antonio
100%.
That's the trouble we're at right now as a city. That's where we're at.
Is there anything else that you want to make sure that you get out before we ask our last questions?
No, I think for one, it's very important to vote this year. I understand it's during Fiesta. I understand that it's a time where you want to have fun, but I cannot stress enough how important 2025 is in terms of a mayoral election in San Antonio. Look, I hate politics. I've never wanted to run. This isn't something that I want to do, but I saw things happening in my city that should not be happening, and this is why I decided to run. And just as much as people out there that are like, oh, I don't have faith in the politics and I don't want to vote because of that, please, for this year, let's change that. Let's actually dig into the details of what these candidates are pushing, whether it's myself or someone else, and vote with your heart. Vote with your heart. Put it. I mean, this. I don't want to say it's life or death, but 2025 is life or death for San Antonio.
It's an important year.
It's an important year. So that's all I have for that.
So, and I'll say focus on the person, not the party.
Yeah.
You notice we went through this whole thing. We didn't ask what party. It doesn't matter. It's about the person.
It's about the ideas.
I agree.
And speaking of ideas and like what's important, so what is your favorite breakfast taco in San Antonio?
If you say Taco Cabana, we're gonna take that.
You're saying. I thought you were saying the actual restaurant.
Yeah.
Yeah. Where's your go-to? Well, do both. What's your order? Mine's potato and chorizo.
Yeah, do chorizo and potato, chorizo and bean. Chorizo anything really is kind of my go-to.
Isn't it crazy? But do you ever eat just chorizo?
I don't.
I thought about this. Chorizo is only good.
You know how spicy that would be?
With some. You never
It's actually, try it. My mom makes it, and she'll just make it talk. She just throws chorizo in a tortilla, and she's like, just have it. It's actually really good.
With some cheese.
It's not good for you. It's not good for you, but it's good. But I would say, I mean, the go-to in San Antonio, I mean, my go-to, dude, I'm all over the place, man. Like, I'll go to, I'm trying to think of where I stay pretty loyal. It's probably because I grew up in this neighborhood. El Rodeo de Jalisco, off of Wurzbach and I-10, right behind that HEB. They've been there for years, since I was like 13. They've gotten a lot of behind the kitchen door, I think, demerits. But that's how you know that's how you know it's good, man. It's like,
well, I always say,
if they're failing the test, I don't know, it's good, dude.
They don't have time to study, they're working.
Again, full disclosure, I haven't looked at them in about 10 years in terms of their grades, but I know that they used to get dinged a lot.
I always say, like, the old Whataburger, if it's in a triangle Whataburger building and it's a Mexican restaurant, it's always good.
Yeah.
You know, my random thoughts driving up to the office today, because we're right by the airport.
Yep.
I was like, the airport needs a real taqueria.
This is true.
They have La Gloria in there.
Yeah, they need like...
Yeah, but that's Johnny. That's Johnny, man.
Yeah.
Johnny has it going.
He's good.
He is
They're
good.
great. But they need like...
But he does take it sometimes.
My people,
he doesn't always give you the comfort Mexican food.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's a little different.
I want
it's more
that comfort.
restaurant-ish.
I want the
La Gloria's
waitresses
the
not
best.
to be able to pass TSA standards to get in. You know what I mean? Like, I want authentic. You know what I mean? Like,
Damn. Is that gonna air?
I don't care if you gotta get it before check-in or security, but man, that's what we need.
Good.
All right, and now in burger. What's your favorite burger?
Favorite burger, man. My go-to is typically Chester's. I love Chester's.
Dude, he hates on them. I'm not a.
I'm not a fan of the seeds on the bun.
I like a Chester.
My favorite's Mr. Juicy.
We used to.
I haven't been that way. Actually, yeah, I have.
With Andrew
Castle
Weissman.
Hills.
Yeah.
Yeah,
That was
so
good. That was really good.
Yeah.
We have the
Before
owner coming
volleyball
on.
games, my mom and dad, the Chester's right there because they go to
Yep.
Alma Heights.
Yep.
We all the time.
That's my
All the time.
go-to, man. That's
It's a
my
great
go-to.
burger.
I had a condo right behind there, so I would go there probably 3 times a week.
Yeah.
Have a beer. They used to have a $2 special. I think they're up to like $4 now. But you could literally buy a $2 Franziskaner, which if you go to a Central Market, you're gonna pay $8
They've
for
always
like
had
per
the
beer.
beer list. They've always had a beer list.
So the beer list is my favorite part of Chester's,
Yeah.
but the burger's good. But yeah, to answer your question, Rudy's, not Rudy's. Okay,
Are
so
you
you've
saying
been here long enough. Did you ever go to Rudy's on North New Braunfels? The burger spot with the
North
bus in front of the place.
When
You remember Rudy?
and they
Rootys.
and they used to sell root beer, and they had
Yep.
they had a barrel with root.
Yep.
Yeah, I know
So
that.
that was my favorite growing up, but now it's Chester's.
The interest, yeah. I haven't thought of Rudy's in a long time. I thought you were saying Rudy because it was funny.
No,
The flood of '98.
Yep.
I worked at the Leon Springs Rudy's barbecue.
Okay.
And so if you go in there on
There's
the
a
mural,
mark on the wall.
There's a mark on the wall. It's about 3.5 feet, and there's like a mural, and it shows people on the roof. I'm not in the mural, but I was on the roof.
No way.
The
you were
fire-
probably on video then.
The fire truck came and dropped a ladder down, and we crawled across the ladder.
No way.
30 minutes later, all the water was down. We could have walked off.
That's hilarious.
But what's crazy is on that one, like literally, like there's people with knee high with water
Yep.
in line saying, "I want a half pound of brisket," and we're
They're
like,
still ordering?
And we're like, "Lady, we're closed." We're like, "It's flooding," and she's like, "I came here. I want," and like there's
People
a guy
want
in the
their
back
barbecue, man.
literally. Like chopping, like cutting up barbecue and getting them out. It's like, okay, here, like we gotta get going. It was like
Rudy's isn't that good
No,
to stand in
I-
flood water to
I
get
like
it.
Rudy's, but yeah, it's not.
it's
It's not
to
flood
stand in
water.
flood
Yeah.
water.
well, if we're gonna, it's not a San Antonio like homegrown, but like the best barbecue in my opinion in San Antonio is the Pinkertons downtown on Travis.
Pinkertons. It is good.
so
Super
good.
expensive though.
It's so
I
good.
spend $50 myself every time I go there.
Easy.
Hey, you know
easy.
what slept
Easy.
on?
Like 2 pounds of
I got
brisket,
6 kids,
sausage.
baby. When
HEB
we go,
barbecue
there's
is
10 of
slept
us.
on.
Which one?
True Texas barbecue.
barbecue.
Where is that?
The HEB.
Oh yeah.
Right there in
Lincoln
Lincoln
Heights.
Heights has one
Oh,
now.
man.
Yeah,
They're really
so
good.
good.
Yeah.
I've been going to that one now.
I love everything HEB. So, all right, guys, like and subscribe to us. Mal for Mayor, MAU for Mayor on Instagram. Get out and vote,
See y'all later.
brother.
the election season.